Hey everyone, welcome to the video. We're looking at Season 66 today and trying to narrow down some good starting paths. We'll look at tech you can ignore, then starting troops, all followed by an unlock order. And before we jump in, if you're buying anything in the shop, would appreciate using a code. If you want to support this channel, you can use code Stoneheart. So whenever we first look at a tech tree, start off with looking at some tech that you can ignore. And usually this tech, it still is useful, but there's better things to get still. And there's a lot of that this season. So to start off, there's these boost nodes at 3 ER. For 20 keys, you get 10% of a boost. And the idea with this is a boost doesn't make up for something much stronger like a defense or troop. And you can see after 4 ER, there's a lot of strong stuff like machine guns, flames, lasers. So having only 10% of a boost for roughly the same keys, it's not a good investment. And this carries over to the other boost nodes after that. So even though you get 10% extra boost, 10 more after that, adding it all up, it's 70 keys just for 60% of a boost. And those 70 keys can get you really far. So it's like, would you rather have 60% more troop damage, or machine guns and flames and something else? And even though that last node, in this case building damage, is 1 key, if you have a lot of strong offense, which in this case we do in terms of troops, that building damage might not do much. So if you want to go down this path, maybe you can, but I wouldn't early in the season. Next, there's that multi-node right before 4 ER. And one rocket boom cannon, it could do a little bit of something, but there aren't many tokens to upgrade at the start, so this might be better worth later in the season, like even as late as 5 ER or 6 ER. And after that, there's even more boost nodes, so now down this dead end at 4 ER. And even though this one does have building health, it's the same logic, where you're spending 70 keys just for 60% building health. And at 4 ER, 5 ER, there's a lot of just normal tech like defenses, abilities, heroes, and troops. I can go a lot further than just a few boosts. And like before, this does carry over to that troop health. We aren't really crossing off the first boost nodes at 2 ER. And that's mainly because it's a lot better value. Instead of 20 keys for 10%, it's 20 keys for double that. Not saying it's so worth to get, but if there are some boost nodes you want to get, I'd probably start with these. And a few more things we can skip over. One is Grens. You have lasers right next to it, which both do splash, but lasers are just faster, do more damage, and just better overall. And the last thing we can cross out is that troop boost node. It does give an extra level of rifles, lasers, warriors, and looking at other tech besides it, there's a lot more value coming from that than just a few extra troop health or troop damage. And already we just crossed off a bunch of the early season, so it really helps narrowing down a path moving forward. And with that, we can talk about starting troops, but a quick look at the decks. Do have 2 ER here. It's a little cool with that gap in the middle, so you can only put buildings on either side, and it shouldn't be too much of a problem attacking, just drop on each side. But when you move to 3 ER, it does get better. There's more space for troops to walk through, so if possible I'd go 3 ER right away. And 4 is even better than that. You have these dead ends that go in the corners, and since we still don't have flare at this point, all their troops can go in the middle and walk all the way around to the ends. I do think it's the best deck of the season, so rushing to 4 ER could be a big advantage there. And we will just take a quick look at 5. Those dead ends open up just a bit, so I wouldn't say 5 is a better deck than 4. You might go there once you have keys for other tech. And now we can look at a few troops. So everyone starts with some HCs, which is the first time we ever had that. It is a neat thing, but we don't have any heavies till way later in the season. And that's a really big factor on whether HCs are strong at this point, because they hardly do any damage. You spawn level 1 heavies that do the same damage as like 2 rifles, and they themselves don't do much. You don't really need a meat shield at this point, with not a lot of splash defenses, so I probably wouldn't use HCs at all, not at 2, 3, 4, maybe not even until 7, once you get heavies. But it is good we have some other options, the main of those being rifles. At 2 and 3 ER, there's hardly any splash, so that means you can just drop all rifles and watch them go through the base. Later at 3 we do get warriors, and I think both are pretty close in terms of speed, but it really doesn't matter what you use since they're both on the main path. So if you upgrade both anyways, you'll always have that option. But what might be even better is when you move to 4 ER and can finally get lasers. It's only the 3rd time ever we had lasers this early, and we do get machine guns, flames, so some splash at 4 ER, but there's still no mines, so I'm sure rifle lasers can do a lot of work at 4 ER, especially since lasers are fast, they do a lot of damage, and they hit many buildings at once. Even if lasers aren't the absolute fastest troop at 4 ER, ahead in the season, there aren't many troops at 5 or 6, so whether or not you use them at 4, you'll probably have to get lasers at some point. Unless you really want to take an extreme path like rushing Seekers or going full defense, I think lasers are a good pickup. There is something we can know about the 2 heroes. Do have Brick and Rudy early on, and they're not bad options, but it's just a lot of keys up front. You're spending 42 keys, I think they're for sure going to be faster, probably beat anyone who doesn't have Brick or Rudy, but if you look ahead at 5 ER, you do get Kavan on the main path. So if you're already gonna get a hero, you might as well just wait a few days and get him at 5. If you're ER capped at 4, then sure, maybe Brick or Rudy is a good pickup, but otherwise skipping them should be the way to go. And now that we narrowed down tech and talked about starting troops, we can move on to an unlock order. So just combining both of those and choosing what to get first, because that's a big difference when playing Warships. It really matters what order you get stuff. It could be the difference from ranking up a ton on day 1 or just getting stuck. And we'll start with that multi-node at 2 ER, probably 2 cannons, because if we're using troops in a lot of numbers, 2 cannons kill stuff faster than 1 BC. And next 3 ER, because we did mention the deck layout is a lot better than 2. After that I get some troop damage. It is a first troop damage and it's pretty cheap. If you're still using rifles in this case, you don't really need warriors right away, but you'll still go down that path later on. Maybe getting that Doom Cannon for this node. A laser wouldn't do that much damage to kill stuff, and a grappler does hardly anything to swarm units. At least a Doom Cannon does a little bit of splash. There are rockets next. Even if you want to max them early, they're really expensive, so I don't think you'll have the tokens. But they're still a little useful. Can maybe force people to use some medics or medkit later on. And we do pick up medics right before 4 ER. I probably won't use them, but again, some bases, 1 or 2, might be useful if they have rockets. And just like that, I would go straight to 4 ER. Because when you look at the deck again, it's just a lot better than anything before it. And if you're early to this new deck layout, even that alone could get you a lot of wins. Especially against 3 ERs with all other tech. Not only that, you got a lot of strong stuff after 4, so there's machine guns, which is 6 more buildings, and a splash. If you are going offense, I'd probably get lasers at this point. Could make the argument about getting building health or flames first, maybe if you want to go a little more defensive. But rushing to lasers right away gets you that one troop that can deal with pretty much everything. And after that, maybe building health and then flames. We still don't have shocks at this point, but there's a chance you might not need them yet. And if that's the case, medkits are another option. You can still use them to heal past machine guns, flames, rockets. But the reason they could be better is they're on the way to 5 ER. And going offense, sure, maybe you want to get shocks or troop health, some boost nodes at 2 ER, but I think the best thing is just going to 5. Looking at it again, you get some pretty decent offense. Flare is a big one, you can finally control troops, and there's Kavan, which works great with rifles and lasers. But as for an offense path, I think that's a decent starting point. And if you are no IT, this isn't too bad either. In fact, rifles are one of the best troops you can have. They don't cost a lot, they're really cheap to upgrade. I think you only have to wait 15 minutes for a full 8 boats of them. So let's say you start with full rifle rush and then later move on to rifle lasers. Hopefully you don't have to wait too long between matches. But that's the offense path, and we'll take a quick look at more of a defensive one. The first two unlocks are still the same as offense, just going to 3 ER, but instead of getting troop damage, I'd pick up snipers instead. Not only because they're a defense, but you do need 1 node before 4 ER, just so you have the tech level. Later is still moving towards 4 ER, so you do pick up some rockets, and also machine guns right after. Now the other change is, instead of getting lasers, you can get the defense instead. So in this case, getting some building health, and some flames. It might be a little tricky, using only warriors or rifles, but I think you should still clear the base. There's still medkits that can help you on. And it might be weird just rushing 5 ER going a defense path, but again, looking at 5 ER, not only do you get good offense, you get some good defense too. There's mines right there, shock launchers, mortars later on. So if you're early to these defenses, that can go a long way too. Even though a lot of these paths is what you get at 5 ER, it's a big part about how you play a season. Sure, you can get a bunch of tech and rank up in the first day or two, but if you want to be solid long term, then gotta think that far ahead. And once you get those defenses at 5 ER, maybe you can consider a little bit of offense, like troop damage, shocks, maybe even lasers. And those are the 2 paths for the season. Notice we're skipping a lot of boost nodes. So just because you have them available doesn't mean you gotta unlock them. It does seem like a lot of node switching, but if you just commit to a path, or again, skip boost nodes entirely, you don't have to waste a single diamond. And good luck for the season. And I will be streaming the start, I think also on the Rank 1 account if you want to tune in. But that's going to be it for today's video. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.